So this is going to be great. We've got a really, really good panel. I want this to be as conversational as possible and not just kind of the typical kind of back and forth. I want to start with a brief story. 2004, I was running a decent-sized record company, and we had this one artist, and he was dead, and he had killed himself in the 70s. And who knows why people kill themselves, but one of the reasons he did, or arguably did, was because his music never really got the recognition that it deserved, and he died kind of a sad life. And I was the sort of custodian running this record label of his catalog. So I would deal with his sister and mother, and that's a heavy kind of job. And in the early 2000s, licensing music wasn't yet kind of de rigueur the way it is today. It was something where artists would really think about things, and we kind of made a promise to the artist and his family that we wouldn't just willy-nilly put his music out into the world. And again, we weren't selling hundreds of thousands of these records at the time. We were selling literally thousands of records. And one day I get a email or something from an ad agency in Boston, and it was a storyboard for a commercial. And they wanted to use this artist's music in the commercial. And I called them up. I was like, guys, we don't do that. We'll never put this music into a commercial. And by the way, you fucked it up, right? You didn't. There's no copy or anything on it. They're like, no, George, that's the way it is. That's the way we want it. I said, well, that's kind of interesting. So I sent the storyboard over to the family, and they said, yeah, let's give this a whack. That ad was for the Volkswagen Cabriolet, using Nick Drake's Pink Moon song in it. And some of you probably know the name Nick Drake, and if you don't, you need to, right? His music is transformative and beautiful. But I saw the power at that point. The ad went into the spot, and it's a bunch of kids driving up to a party, no talking, and Nick Drake's Pink Moon plays, and then the kids drive away. We started selling CDs at the time and then downloads like you wouldn't believe. That led to his music being in Garden State, and anyone who knows of Nick Drake now, it's because of that. And it stuck with me all these years later. There are ways in which you can kind of marry commerce and art that's positive sum for everyone. And as I started diving into blockchain in 2014 and writing about it and talking about anyone who would, it was always that gesture. But it wasn't until I met Silvio where I said, this guy is the rare technologist who seems to understand the nexus of technology and art from a very humanistic way. And so the Algorand blockchain is crucial, right? For all of the people on this panel, we know that we're not going to get buy-in from our constituents unless we have not only a blockchain that is fast and efficient and technically, wonderful, but also carbon neutral. It's just a non-starter. We view art as kind of the onboarding mechanism for culture generally. I'd been saying for years that we'd know that blockchain had adopted when we stopped saying the word blockchain. I was kind of right? Now we say NFTs and social tokens and shit, right? People don't seem to connect blockchain back to that, but that's okay. So we've got a great panel. I'll let them introduce themselves, but what I want to get into in our 26 minutes is, what's our role? What's our role as technologists, as artists ourselves, as musicians, as financiers? What's our duty? I will throw down kind of the gauntlet, or pick up the gauntlet that I think Silvio threw down in his keynote today. And I would say that it's not right for any of us to be building tools for artists without artists being in the room, because when you do, you get Spotify, and that's not working. So I'll shut up, I'll go down the road, let you guys introduce yourselves, and hopefully we'll have a spirited conversation. Milton.
Great. Meltem Demirors. I am at CoinShares. CoinShares is a digital asset investment firm. We manage $7 billion in assets across our ETP platforms, so structured financial products. We have an active trading arm, and I run our labs and principal investments arm, where we do weird, fun, crazy things to try to figure out what the future should look like. I've been in this industry for the last 7 years and have invested in over 300 companies in the crypto space, new protocols like Algorand over those 7 years. I spend a lot of time still working on Bitcoin. We can get into the carbon question because I don't prescribe to the philosophy you articulated. I'm your one panelist who doesn't.
Amazing.
I'm happy
Let's
to be
talk
the
it through.
perpetual thorn in your side, but that's me.
you've got to have a thorn in the side of the moderator every time. This is going to be a fun panel.
Always the right idea. Always the
Especially
right
when it's George.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Jimmy Hutchison. I'm the CEO of Spin, also known as Spin Magazine. Any Spin Magazine readers out there over the years? I hope. Okay, good. A few of you. So Spin's been really excited. We've got some of our covers up here behind me. And Spin has entered this space to mint NFTs and to really take our brand, which has been around now for almost 40 years, into the future. Spin has morphed into what was a legacy print brand that many of you knew, with people like Madonna on the cover, et cetera, into really an IP company. We consider ourselves to be a massive IP play. I've been the CEO of Spin for about 2 years, and it's just been incredible, the reaction that we've seen worldwide to the assets that we own. And we've also been really excited to partner with Nax Group and Algorand on an announcement we'll have coming up later. But yeah, I think we're excited to be here and excited for the panel.
My name is Keatley Haldeman. I'm co-founder and CEO of Dequency. We're a decentralized music licensing marketplace. We are taking the middleman out of music licensing transactions, specifically synchronization licenses, as George was talking about. It's licensing music to picture, so that music creators take home more money, get paid instantly, and have a say in the control of the system.
All right, I'm going to dive right in, as you put a thorn in my side. You said on a panel, cryptocurrencies are not just an investment. They're political, cultural, and social in nature. Couldn't agree more. Can you expand on that a little bit, and also talk about why you, as kind of a, I don't know if you call yourself a financier or whatever, investor, are on this panel with other creatives?
Yeah, so I don't call myself a financier. I'm going to go out there and say I call myself a vibe capitalist. Vibe capitalist, yeah. So I think one really important thing, and what's really appealing to me about the Bitcoin community when I first started, is it really, money was the tool, right? Like, greed is a great incentive to get people into the rabbit hole. Like, how many people are here because they were excited by the tech, and how many people are here because they wanted to make money? And you don't have to raise your hand, but it's probably an equal mix for people when they first get into crypto. That's why artists are excited by NFTs. They're like, what? I can make a lot more money. So capitalism, right, and this idea of investing for profit is the flywheel, but what keeps people in the crypto space is the culture. And I think one of the really important things is, as an investor, a lot of investors don't take ownership of the culture they're creating, right? They deploy capital and they kind of sit back and they harvest their gains. I think it's really important for us to actually engage and actively co-create that culture with the very people we're supposed to be helping. So as you said, right, if we had this panel, we couldn't really have it without musicians and artists in the room. Similarly, like, it's not enough to just deploy capital into a new protocol and hope that it organically takes off or rely on the community to build it. It's actively going out and building things. So I run a DAO with a bunch of musicians, DJs and DJs, as I like to call it, and I'm helping them reinvest the capital that they're making, right? We're helping people deploy that capital effectively. We're working with different artists, like photographers and artists, figuring out what they want to build, not only investing in it, but I'm the first person who collects their art. I introduce them to other art collectors and other investors. So again, like, it's really important for investors to not just deploy capital, but it's important for them to participate in creating the narrative and the culture, and ensuring that that culture sort of remains as the ecosystem grows. And I think that's been, frankly, one of the persistent challenges in some of these blockchain ecosystems, is as they grow and get larger and larger and become more financialized, that culture component gets lost.
Always. No, I mean, I would say that it's historically been the challenge, right? Like, inarguably, the modern day record industry was built on the back of institutional racism and misogyny. Full stop, right? And if anybody wants to argue with that, I'll be here all night, right?
But what are we doing differently here?
Well, what we're doing right now
differently?
is credit is currency, right? So if I said to someone right now, who wrote Hound Dog? Everybody like, oh, Elvis Presley. No, A black woman did, Big Mama Thornton. And credit is currency. And so giving her credit for that and having a public ledger of that allows her to then get new gigs and new opportunities and hopefully payment, that's a big seismic change. But to Jimmy, I mean, Meltem talked about kind of protecting culture. You're a steward of a treasure trove of culture with Spin. We were talking backstage about launching NFTs for these covers, and they're iconic. I grew up reading Spin. And so why are you the arbiter of this? How are you using these technologies to kind of protect culture? Is there money flowing down to the photographers, to the people that are kind of behind the scenes? And talk a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, of course. I think I have to agree with what Meltem was saying about narrative and storytelling. I think Spin's role in this is to editorialize what the artists are doing and to help tell some of the stories and create experiences that demonstrate the culture to the fans. And at the end of the day, Spin works for our readers. We don't work for the music industry. We serve the readers, and we have 12 covers a year, and they're now digital covers. So something that we have that's unique is scarcity, and I think what we're trying to do more of is do more storytelling and editorial around the covers, around the artist, and to tell stories about some of the people that you're even investing in. And Spin was always known not just for music, but also for a lot of what was happening in culture, the Live Aid scandal back in the 90s, et cetera. There's a place for journalism that I think belongs using blockchain technologies, and even compensation to writers, photographers, tracking royalties, et cetera, to certain camps. That's of critical importance. And I think that where we find ourselves is that we're really trying to emphasize that there's stories here, there's a place to put journalism back to where it was at one point, before the world of fake news and everything else. And we like to have fun, Spin's about fun.
We all want to have fun, but it's we lost a great photographer in Mick Rock. I imagine he took any number of Spin photos, and I imagine no one out here knows who he is. But you know his work because he took the iconic Queen photo with Freddie, and lots of others. So do you have any plans of downstream royalties to these photographers, to these writers? These people that the current economy for photographers and writers is shit, right? It's not sustainable. And yet there's liquidity like crazy. And I want to get Keely in on this as well, because what you're trying to do with Dequincy is expand the total addressable market for musicians generally. Today, licensing music into film is this is old and hoary analogy, but like the new radio. It's the way for exposure. So what is your system, Keely, for addressing some of these? And then Jimmy, jump in about the photographers and downstream royalties.
Yeah, for sure. So, the current system for licensing music is very challenging. You got to come back to what is the copyright and what are the copyrights inherent in music. And just quick 101. Every time you hear a song, there are two copyrights. There's the recording of the song, and then there's the copyright of the composition. And within each of those copyrights, each one has to be licensed 100%. So if there are multiple parties within either of those portions of the copyright, every party has to agree to the license. So you might have 5 different writers. You might have 5 different publishers who own the rights to those compositions, and then a record label. The record label, the artist might have a featured artist on there. So you might have to get 2 different record labels, and you might have to get approval from the artist as well. So it's a huge pain. There are companies out there that have grown up to service that by saying we control all the rights 100%, master and publishing, so it's an easy clearance right. But still, in the traditional media, it's a difficult negotiation because you have to actually issue a written paper agreement, and there's some negotiation on terms and different things like that. So we are, and there are Web 2 solutions where there are royalty-free catalogs that you can buy, but the music selection is iffy, is so. It's also one-sided on the marketplace. So if I'm an artist, if I'm a music creator or a music rights owner, and I want to make my music available for licensing, currently, I have to submit it to some company who's then going to make the judgment call. Do I want to make this available? How am I going to make this available? And I have no say in terms of how that's done, how it's presented, what's my fee structure, when do I get paid, all of these different things. So we want to create a two-sided marketplace that's ultimately going to be completely decentralized so that any creator, any rights owner can upload their own music, make it available for licensing. Anyone who wants to license that music can see the music that's available for licensing. And it'll be a first step, but we think a very important step is to cater to on-chain productions. So NFT, motion artists, motion graphics, motion visual artists, metaverse productions, where currently there's no system in existence where somebody can license music on-chain. And we think that's revolutionary.
It's huge, right? And I think we should take this moment. I'm a co-founder, and our third founder is hopefully out here somewhere, Mark Ross. We are announcing that Dequency is live, or not live.
Yeah,
Dequency is live.
This is our coming out
The music that you've heard today was licensed on chain, and Keatley's the CEO of Dequency, and we're really proud to be on the Algorand ecosystem. So this is not just some theoretical thing. This is launching, and maybe talk a little bit about the roadmap.
Yeah, and a little bit about that. This is personally very satisfying for me. I've been in the music industry for about 20 years. About 15 years of that has been specifically in synchronization licensing. Again, sync is the term of art. And for this conference, we licensed Don Diablo's song and the other music on chain, and we wrote a smart contract, and it was executed on mainnet of Algorand. And as far as we know, this is the first time that a music sync license has ever been done on the blockchain. So, thank you.
It's something, right? Right? And the significance of that, and that goes to Meltem's point. Now we know. Right? Maybe we did or didn't treat the artist right. Hopefully we did. But now we have a record. And as a copyright lawyer who has audited all of the major labels, they have no records. They know nothing, right? They're just making shit up. We don't know what the fair market price is for music. We just know right now it's unfair. And you talk about kind of two-sided markets. I'd push that a little bit. I think we need to be thinking about three-sided markets where we have curators, stakeholders, nodes, people that are kind of validating. And one of your, I think, kind of genius moves is Spotify's done the most diabolical jujitsu. Let's get customers to pay $10 to $15 a month to curate songs that we Spotify, in a playlist, that we Spotify will then harvest the data from and spit back to them. Name me another business model like that, where the customer is paying to do the work of the institution. So you're kind of inverting that, and go off that, and then maybe the others can chime in about other things they see in the area.
Yeah, and I don't want to dominate this, so I'll go as quickly as I can. I mean, one of the challenges, of course, when we open it up to a two-sided marketplace is that we might get flooded with music that is maybe not great, not high quality, because people will have access. So we need to create a filtering mechanism, and so we're going to create an economy that incentivizes playlist curators. So similar to how it's done in Spotify, except when you're using Spotify, you're paying Spotify for the right to make playlists. Here, we're going to invert that model, and we're going to pay people to create playlists and curate the catalog, both in terms of the quality and different styles and different relevant moods and genres and use cases. And we think by introducing that and having the other two sides, we're going to have a complete economy that can be completely decentralized and benefit all the stakeholders.
And so Meltem, you talk about like being a collector and then an advocate, and I feel this too as a white male and an investor, et cetera. This kind of weird sense of noblesse oblige that I don't like. I'm curious about how you address that, but I'm equally curious about what about disadvantaged people? Like, it's all well and good for first world people to be like, yeah, just mint an NFT. What about people unbanked, whatever, or people of color, et cetera, that typically don't have access to these types of tools? What are you doing to address that, if anything?
Me personally, I mean, that's like a deep systemic issue that's very complex, and I don't have the tools to solve that. If anyone does, like, kudos to you. So here's what I want to focus on, though. So you raise an important point about the fans. I think the other really important point is when people, especially artists who haven't had a lot of capital at their disposal, have capital at their disposal for the first time, I think another really important thing that's changing that I'm really passionate about is the future of asset management. What does that look like? And how do we help people who are creating wealth for the first time? Like, not only think about how they manage that wealth, but reinvest it back into the creative communities that they're a part of, reinvest it in their fans, right? Because artists are nothing without their fans. This isn't just about extracting value from your fans by selling shit to them. This is about creating a different relationship with your fan base, right? So I think that's really important, and that doesn't get talked about enough. Everyone's like, oh, right, so we make money. It's like, no. This is about culture. This is about creating like a feedback loop where people are all collectively building value. That's the whole point of a distributed network, right? But I think the really big piece that's missing here is once these artists create wealth, who's going to help them manage that capital? The wealth management model today is fundamentally broken, and one of the things I'm really passionate about is something we call the 3Ds, like the fundamental model for how I think about what we're doing at CoinShares. My title is Chief Strategy Officer, so I'm supposed to help us figure out what it is we're doing, and it's changing and evolving. But it's really about the 3Ds, right? You have digitization, so this world of physical and digital are sort of merging, and things that exist in the physical world are being represented in the digital world, and there are things that are purely digital in nature. Then you have disintermediation, or what I call driverless banking, where you can now have autonomous, like programmable money, and you can have value flows that you program autonomously, which is what you're doing with your platform. And then the third piece that's really important is distribution model, right? So what Spotify did to the music industry was change the distribution model. So you get more volume, less value extracted, but way more volume, right? So net, hopefully market size or total addressable market actually increases because the distribution increases dramatically, but the value you extract per piece of music you distribute changes.
The value is definitely not distributed equally.
Sure, and that's a problem, right? But this disintermediation component, the distribution component also applies to how we distribute financial services. And what I'm really excited about is helping artists and people who are building wealth through this new channel figure out, like, what do you do with your money? How do you deploy it in a way that's responsible? How do you contribute to the culture and building things that are sustainable? But also, like, how do you manage your money if you've never had money before?
Right.
And how do you do it in a way that's non-custodial? So I don't need to have access to your wallet. You can do it in your own wallet, and I'm going to give you the strategies. And how do we make it scalable? So whether it's someone making $10 or $100,000 or $100 million, it's accessible to anyone and everyone. I think that's the real opportunity. But at the end of the day, like, all of this will get financialized, and the question is, and my kind of what I think about is, as this gets financialized, how do we financialize it in a way that is less predatory, but also gives people choice? At the end of the day, like, what got me into Bitcoin is people now had a choice for the first time. They had a choice. You don't get to choose where you're born. You don't get to choose a lot of things. You don't get to choose what currency is used in your country. For the first time, we had a choice. Like in 2010, we had a choice. It was called Bitcoin. So I think extending that choice to other parts of our financial lives is incredibly important. And a financial institution has zero incentive to allow you to have choices.
Correct.
They just want to force feed you garbage.
Of course.
No offense to the bankers in the room.
No.
Actually, offense intended.
There we go. Much offense.
Sorry.
Jimmy, build off of that. I saw you nodding kind of aggressively. So build off this theme of how we can have a more meritocracy, way that you with your institution.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of the creator economy is to create opportunities for what I might call, as you're insinuating, these underserved groups of people. And it's not necessarily race. It's more of like, okay, where were you born? Okay, you became a photographer. You grew up through the ranks. Okay, now you're a photographer for Spin Magazine. And how do we compensate you throughout your career as a photographer, as an owner or part owner of one of our photographs? And I think what's been exciting about seeing this creator economy emerge in such a powerful way is that there's so many micro communities that are serving the fans. Like, we've gone back to this point several times about thinking about the fans, thinking about the readers that read Spin. Those are the people that are driving this. And we were talking a little bit backstage about, in a lot of ways, what's happening now is like we're like second movers, right? Building companies on Algorand. This is second mover. Like, I saw, and a lot of us saw a lot of this starting to happen 5 years ago. The reason it's working now is one, because of the fans, but more so, two, because there's buyers. There's buyers who are putting money down for the artwork and for the NFTs and Bored Ape Yacht Club. And I mean, there's so many great examples. And I think part of the idea of creators reaching their fans directly and reaching these communities is super critical. They're removing the middlemen in some cases, but it's almost ironic. The middlemen are now investing.
But wait, I want to
Yeah.
actually raise an important point though, because we
Yeah.
talked about this. So with one thing people don't realize, like different NFTs come with different rights. So if you own a CryptoPunk, you don't actually own the intellectual property associated with your CryptoPunk. Larva Labs does. So you can't license the image. You can't sell merchandise with your punk's image on it. If your punk is used in any sort of capacity, they receive the royalties. They own the IP. If you own a Bored Ape, you actually own the IP. They're making a cartoon spin-off. So if your ape is featured in an episode, you're entitled to royalties. You can use the likeness of your ape and put it on merch. So I think what people don't realize, like NFTs are not one category. They're different sort of classes of IP rights. People who are licensing music, right? One of my friends is a famous DJ and he licensed a track on chain, but like what does it mean to own a music NFT? It doesn't mean that you have the right, the commercial right to that music, right? So I think people forget there's still this world of like blockchain meets real world where there's a lot of nuance around the specific IP rights, and it's really important to sort of define like what are the IP rights as a fan, what rights do you actually have as a collector, right? I collect a lot of art. What IP rights do I have when I buy a one-of-one piece? Like, can I actually license it? If someone uses it in a commercial and I own a one-of-one, digital representation of this music, do I get paid?
Well, but
We have to figure that out. That's really important.
Well, right. I've been saying for half a decade now, smart contracts are neither smart nor contracts, right? And so none of this obviates rule of law. And I think that we are, and I'm old enough to have seen it before, we are going headlong into one of the biggest kind of plaintiff attorney windfalls of all time. As soon as there's critical mass and a suable party, all these collisions between music and art, etc., these are prima facie fucking infringement.
But what I wanted to say, but the point I'm making is putting something on chain doesn't obviate like all of the complex
Rule of
structural
law.
issues. Not rule of
Under the
law. There are like
contract.
other complex issues, right, that are not simply mitigated by putting something on a blockchain. A lot of the issues you're talking about with underrepresented creators, like it's not a blockchain problem. It's like a systemic issue that has to do with policy and governments and education
Okay,
and like.
so now we're getting a deep contract. So that would be a complete
So it's
contract.
not a panacea. Like a blockchain's not a panacea to
You
fix
can't just
everything.
sprinkle blockchain dust on
Okay.
things and everything works, right?
Okay.
And I think that goes to your point, Jimmy, about like we're in wave 2. Wave 1 obliterated a lot of people who thought rule of law or cultural issues or whatever can just be fixed by blockchain. But Keely, the music industry, to my point of view, is fundamentally broken, has been for a long time. And one of the worst offenders, like licensing music in 2021 is like booking travel in 1975, right? Full of rent seekers, intermediaries. What are you doing with Dequency to kind of make that more efficient and better?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
bring in the rule of law, right? I mean, how much do you spend on legal fees right now licensing tracks?
Yeah, I won't too much. But, the smart contract is just a means to affect an actual contract. And we will have a contract that's available that you can see. And when you do the smart contract NFT, what that says is you executed that contract that's sitting there that is actual words, that we've all agreed to. So, there is a real world tie-in that has to happen. And what we're doing is just automating that process, making that easier, facilitating artists to be able to do that, creators to be able to do that on their own without that third party in the middle who's blessing that transaction, who's saying this is how it has to happen, because we're guiding them toward that, which means it takes out that middleman company that's going to take a fee, which is sometimes 50% or more. And so for especially independent artists, that's real money that should go into their pockets, and we're then going to be creating these opportunities for more collaboration with visual artists, with visual content producers, and creating a community around that so that people can contact each other. This doesn't exist right now. Any of the traditional companies don't have that, and then any of the Web 2 licensing companies, there is no means for communication between the music users and the music creators, and they don't even have a playlist curation concept about that. So we feel like if we can have everyone talking, more ideas are going to flow, more great content is going to be created, more people are going to win and make money.
Amazing. So we're running out of time. I want to challenge all of you creators, builders, entrepreneurs, investors, or whatever, as the Algorand Arts Advisor, don't build things without artists in the room. One, because not doing so will help you avoid Dunning-Kruger. 2, and more importantly, it's the right thing to do. And if you're looking for fucking artists, call me. I got plenty of artists. I'm going to let each of you 10, 20 seconds, last words you want to leave the panel with. Meldum, start.
I'll go last.
Immediately start.
Look, I mean, blockchain is an amazing way to put the power back into the hands of the creators so that the creators can ultimately make more money, make more art, put more great ideas out into the world, and that's wonderful for humanity.
I thought this was a fun fact. We talk a lot about the power in the hands of the creators, but taking the middlemen out. But now you see some of the biggest managers in music, like Guy Oseary. He manages Bored Ape Yacht Club. So he was the manager of Madonna, U2, Red Hot Chili Peppers. So I think there's so much irony in that. But yeah.
Yeah, my closing thought is like we are entering the roaring 20s. We're about to see like an explosion of creativity fueled by this new capital like we've never seen before. I work with a ton of creatives as friends and collaborators, and the shit they're building is mind-blowing. And I challenge everyone to think about how we can collectively contribute to like culture and making people feel joy through the things we create, not just making a fuckload of money, but spending it on beautiful experiences that make the world a fun and magical place for everyone.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all.
My dad